weeks now. So I think everybody will be picking strawberries within, if they're not already, be in the next week or so. We'll have strawberries everywhere, and very early, but that's good for the farmers. That's good for the growers to be able to start early like that.
Well, Johnny, I know several weeks ago with the frost, there was a lot of worries, and the growers were having to irrigate to keep the strawberries from freezing, and that's kind of odd how it works, to where if you keep water, spraying on them, I think you have explained it, as the water freezes to the plant, it kind of creates a little bit of heat that keeps from damaging the plants. Did I explain that right?
Yeah, that's
You've done a
correct.
good job teaching me, Johnny.
That's correct. There's some physics in there that I'm not aware of, but I don't know. But anyway, as ice is formed, it does create a little bit of heat, so you can get some some insulation, if you will, from the cold from the ice. But you have to continue. Once you start putting ice out there or throwing water on the plants, you have to continue doing that until the temperatures get above freezing. So you can't just get the ice on them and think that ice is going to insulate them. But it's the creation of ice that creates the heat. So you have to keep throwing water on the plants once you start. So it makes a long night. If it gets below freezing at 11 o'clock, and you have to throw water until 6 or 7 o'clock the next morning when it gets above freezing, and even later than that possibly, it can be a challenge. A lot of growers will put row covers over their strawberries as well, which is a challenge itself. You think about a strawberry field, even if it's a half acre, that's a big strawberry field, or up to an acre, and they even get larger than that. But that's a large area to cover with the row cover. So, and usually when that's needing to be done, the wind's up. And if you can imagine this 400, 600 foot long row cover that you're trying to pull over an acre, half acre field, and the wind's blowing, you just have one big sail, and all of a sudden, it can be very, very difficult to do. So it's not an easy time. Growers that I've talked to, hopefully we are through the frost, but we're still middle of April, and
tomorrow being the 15th.
Yeah, that's the frost date.
They say that we have a 50% chance of frost up to the 15th.
After the 15th, it starts dropping below that. Quickly. So, 2 out of the last 3 years we've had a frost in May. Not a bad frost, but still a frost nonetheless. So, hopefully we will not have that this year with things warming up as it has. Hopefully we're past that. But anyway, it's one of those things. Everybody talks about the weather, nobody does anything about it.
That's right. Well, your biggest partner in many things that you do is always the weather. Wouldn't you agree, Michaela?
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I know that I'm a field crops girl, but I actually have spent a night watering strawberries back whenever I worked at the Piedmont Research Station. Yeah, I spent a night watering some strawberries, so I know that life. But it's interesting how field crops and horticultural crops line up, because my growers are worried about the frost too, but with their wheat, the wheat is early as well, and so it has a bigger chance of being impacted by frost as well. So it's the same concerns that your growers are having, and now my tobacco growers, they're looking to start planting tobacco, and so they're worried about the frost in that aspect as well.
So, Michaela, frost can actually harm wheat?
Yes.
Even though it's a winter crop?
Yes. So this year, it's the same thing that happened to the strawberries. The wheat was planted in the fall. They got very big before they went dormant because it stayed so warm for so long. Then we had a warmer beginning, a fake spring, I guess you could say.
Spring or something like that. Yeah.
And so then the wheat kind of broke out of dormancy and started doing what we call jointing or standing up. You know how grass will kind of spread out and then it'll start shooting up.
Right.
That's what we want the wheat to do, because that means that the growing point or the wheat head is going from the bottom of the wheat stem and it's moving up, but it means that it's more susceptible to frost. So as that small small wheat head starts moving up the stem, frost can come and actually kill it and reduce yield for growers.
Had no idea, have never heard that, but I must say you're the first time or the first agent that I've ever dealt with that is the wizard and the queen of wheat.
Wizard of wheat, I like that.
That's right. So, but that is interesting, and you know, I'm sure to be some tobacco farmers will start planting within maybe 8-10 days or so.
I already know of some tobacco that's in the ground.
Really? Wow.
Very, very early, but yes, but I think that once this rain goes back through, I think that some people will start really ramping up and starting to get some tobacco in the ground.
Well, you know, I had talked to your father-in-law, I don't know, a few years ago, and we were just talking about, you know, farming in general. And he said, yeah, Rob, he said, you know, in the early spring, he said, we're dealing with frost. And he said, by the time we get the tobacco harvested, he said, we're having to deal with frost issues. Because with the amount of tobacco that growers are planting now, in many cases, it may take them, you know, upwards to 3 weeks to a month to get it all in the ground. And then when you figure that into that aspect, just say if some people start planting, as you say, some has already planted, but if they plant over the next month or so, that's going to put us about to the middle or towards the end of May. And so 30 days is a long time in a sense. Johnny, what did you say you always say about time?
Which one? I don't remember.
Time flies, but it crawls or something like that.
Days go by fast, but days go by slow, but years go by fast.
That's right. Days go by slow, but years go by fast. I can never remember that, but it is so true. You know, when you get looking back over time, and you say, well, you know, that wasn't that long ago. And then when you do a little bit of checking into it, you're like, wow, it's been that long.
I always have to add 5 years to anything. When I start telling a story and say, well, it was about 5 years ago, and it's probably been 10.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Kayla doesn't have that problem yet. So.
Do what now?
Kayla doesn't have that problem yet. Probably.
Well, but you're right. Just, you know, time just really, you know, goes by. But yeah, you know, that is interesting about the wheat. I've never had any idea that, you know, early cold weather. But I guess it all depends, as well as like Johnny has said before, when you have like trees sprouting and blooming, and then when you have a frost to come in, you know, so I guess kind of the same principle with wheat. But now, let's talk just a little bit about gardening. They've got vegetable plants, tomato plants, lots more seed here at T.G. Brooks Supply Company. For those folks that's never been to a place like this is an old-fashioned hardware / general store, and they have grown with the times, but they carry a lot of the things here that you don't find just anywhere. This place started back in 1936, and we want to say a congratulations to Bill and Roy Brooks on their per se retirement from the store. But Dusty Clayton, he's the proprietor, the new owner of the business here. We want to wish Dusty the very best success, but it's a landmark, and you know, if you can talk to people from Person, Granville, Durham, you know, and Orange counties, and you can say, well, you know where T.G. Brooks Supply Company is at? And most of them say, yeah, I know where it's at.
It's a landmark, that's right.
That's right. That's and right. You can come by here and get so many things that you just can't pick up at a lot of places.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, they have the seeds, you know, seeds by the pound and by the ounce, so, you know, you don't find that everywhere. So they have the White Coral brand seeds, which is always a good brand around here. to have, and they have the different chemicals or whatever you might need for your gardening. Looks very similar. Didn't see much difference when I walked in here today from where it was when Bill and Roy
That's
had,
right, and I
had
think
place.
Dusty's doing a fine job of continuing the tradition and the legacy of the Brooks family. I sure do, and I'm happy with that. Well, Johnny, let's talk just a little bit. You just mentioned whenever you are doing anything, you want to start off in the very best way you can with good quality seeds that you can get from a reputable supplier or a distributor, wherever it may be, and that way you know that you're getting a good quality product to start planting. And it's the same way when you are buying your plants. You need to look for healthy plants, and you know, Kayla, I remember Gary Cross. I don't know if you ever met Gary, but he was a crops agent before Michaela, and he was the first one that I ever heard talk about going out to these corn plots and doing comparisons with first day emergent corn versus second day and third day emergence. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, when we do a test plot, he said, after it's planted, he said, we go out there, and he said, we mark a lot of the plants that come up on, first.
Yeah.
He said, and then we'll go back and we'll look for the ones that come up day 2, and then we'll go back and we'll look for the ones that comes up on the 3rd day after the first ones have broke, through the crust of the earth. And he said, Rob, you would be surprised at the yield difference between those first day emergent seed versus day number 3 emergent. And I'm like, man, it cannot be that much difference, but it is in the Michaela.
It is, and actually part of the thing that drives that is something called growing degree days, which I think is also used in gardening.
It is.
Is that right?
Yeah. And insects and a lot of things.
Yes, yeah. So NC State has actually come up with a tool. You want at least 40 to 50 growing degree days before you plant over the... excuse me, let me start back over. I'm getting excited because I love talking about this.
That's good. That's good to get happy and excited. That shows you love it.
I do. So you want at least 40 to 50 growing degree day units, which is an accumulation of heat, over the next 5 days from the day that you plant corn. You will have the best emergence of corn whenever you do that. There's a tool from NC State. You can just Google NC State corn climate tool, and it'll probably come up, but you can put in your location, and it will use local weather forecasting data, and it'll tell you how many. It has a chart with different days, and it'll tell you if you plant corn on this day, this is how many growing degree day units you will accumulate over the next 5 days. And so you can look at that, and if it has 30 on that date, then you know, oh, I probably shouldn't plant corn on this day. If it has over 50, then you're like, okay, yeah, it's go time. Let's plant as much corn as we can.
So you want that number as high as you can get it, so to speak. Wow, that is really, the technology, we're still using the same things that our forefathers have brought along to what we're doing now, but just the technology, the science and things has came a long, long way, and which is good because I think they say that each farmer now is feeding 155 people. Now, with that being said, tobacco farmers, they're getting counted as a farmer, but it's a lot of folks out there that are planting, certain crops that are not necessarily feeding people, but to keep, and I know food is expensive, but to keep food at a price to where it's per se affordable, we really need to have these growers, maximizing their yield, and with research going into it that is helping achieve the goal.
Yep.
Now, organic, it's wonderful. Organic is really expensive, but Gary Cross is the first one I ever heard say, Rob, you cannot feed the world off of organic crops.
Not with the numbers that are growing right now.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so that says a tremendous amount. And another thing about corn, with these planters that they have or guided with GPS, they do it to where it's no seed wasted. When that planter gets back to where you're crossing a row where you've already planted, it cuts that seed off. That's saving the producer money, saving fertilizer. And also, I'm told that the way that seed is placed in the ground has a lot to do with how fast it emerges out of the ground. And the way it was kind of explained to me, you know how a corn seed is kind of pointed on one end. If you can have that pointed in to the sky, into the ground, you know, have it pointed up. But if it's pointed down, it has to more or less turn around and break through the soil. So it's just amazing. But if you do some research ahead of time, whether you're planting field crops or a garden, Johnny, it will do a lot for you and help you out in the end. Is that correct?
That's for sure. I mean, and so what Michaela was talking about with the temperatures, what the growing degree days are, it's a temperature control measurement, I guess. So, you want to make sure that the soil is at a certain temperature before you plant certain crops, before you plant the corn or butter beans or whatever you're going to plant. And we've said many times, if you're going to plant transplants, you want to make sure that the nighttime temperatures are going to be above 50 or 55 for that plant to grow the best. If you're talking about warm season crops, summer crops, and not your cold crops that I'm talking about now, but peppers, tomatoes, cucumber, squash, the warmer season or summer crops. You want to just make sure the nighttime temperature is very critical. Daytime it may get up 70, 75 degrees, that's fine, but that nighttime temperature get below 50 is really going to affect how quickly that plant will grow, and oftentimes even nutrient take up. So you can get some deficiencies just by having cooler nights in some plants. They usually grow out of that, but that can affect them. So it's something you need to pay attention to. And what's amazing to me, Rob, with all the technology that has come about, is how many more fields that has opened up in the field of agriculture. I mean, it's not just knowing when to plant the crop or when to harvest the crop anymore. It's the technology of knowing how to set the equipment to do the right thing, to be the most efficient.
Wow.
So
it's amazing.
So students coming out of college or even high school, they may not want to be a farmer, but they still may want to get into agriculture in some other capacity.
And agriculture is the biggest employer throughout our nation.
Yeah.
Ag-oriented and ag-related jobs, it sure is.
Yeah.
Anyway, if y'all are just by chance tuning in, we left the air a little bit early today on the Garden Supporter Program. We're here broadcasting live from T.G. Brooks Supply Company, and we try to come down here maybe 2 or 3 times a year. We hadn't been here since, I guess, in the spring of maybe last year.
Yeah.
But we're glad to be back, and we appreciate Dusty Clayton for welcoming us here. We always feel welcome, and we're always happy to be here. On the program with us today is Johnny Coley, the horticultural agent for Person and Granville counties of the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service, and Miss Michaela Berryhill, who is the crops agent for Person and Granville counties of the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service. I'm not saying this just because I know about all the agents, but I think with the Person and Granville County offices, we have some of the finer agents and smarter agents in North Carolina. And I'm not taking anything away from any of the other counties, but of all all the ones around, they have always been willing to help out and lend advice, and that means a lot. And when you all are approached, y'all know how to answer a person and not make them feel like you don't have any idea what you're doing, and now you're asking me to talk you through this. You all are not arrogant, and that is really, really good, because when you don't know, it can be a little bit intimidating sometimes, asking a question that you feel like you should already know the answer to, but you don't. But you shouldn't feel that way when you talk to your local extension agent, and they have the tools and the means to help you get the answer that you are needing and wanting. In many cases, they can give it to you right off the hip, but if not, they have ways and means to get that answer.
Yeah, I've answered a lot of questions, but I don't know, but I'll get back with you in the last 6
that's
years.
what I was going to say. I think that I say I don't know more times a day than anybody else.
I feel relieved when I get a softball thrown at me, and I can say, yeah, it is raining outside.
Yeah,
something
that's
like that.
right. but you know something else with that, it keeps y'all's job interesting for you all to learn different things.
Yeah.
But Johnny, let's talk just a little bit about gardening. I know you love tomatoes, and you just can't wait for the first tomato to get ripe on the plant.
I love to see them grow. I love to see them grow.
Johnny doesn't like tomatoes, but he can really, talk you through in how to grow wonderful tomatoes. But Johnny, a lot of people, they want to be the first ones on the block or in the community to have, beautiful ripe tomatoes. Now, if you got the means, you can plant them earlier and stuff, but if you don't have a place or the means to protect them from the cool weather and things, it's no time lost planting them. You can hold off to May, and you still may be, the first one, on your street to have vine ripe tomatoes.
Just get an early ripening variety, and you beat everybody. Early girl's been around forever. It's 52-week maturity date on early girls, and you still beat the guys that planted the Better Boys and Celebrity that have a 70 to 72 day of maturity. So you just go out and pick your right varieties. But yeah, you're right, Rob. As far as planting the tomatoes, planting them early. This year you might be able to get by with it, but the best way to have very early tomatoes is to build you a greenhouse and plant them in that, so you can grow them inside the greenhouse and or some kind of cold frame to protect them. But yeah, I mean, 4th of July, if you can get a tomato before the 4th of July, you're doing pretty good. That's usually the date that most of the tomatoes are going to be ripe in the garden around here. If you plant them, mid to late April, 1st of May, they're going to mature end of June, 1st of July. That's usually the time frame. But there's a lot of crops that will produce quicker than that. Your squash and your cucumbers, they're a quicker turnaround. They don't take as long to produce. So I remember when we had the nursery, a lady was in the nursery and she was buying her squash plants, and she told me that she had looked in the freezer, and she always dates her squash when she freezes the squash from year to year, and she said that she had actually put squash up the year before on the day that she was buying the plants that year. So every season is different.
Wow.
So you gotta pay attention to what the weather is.
Well, you just mentioned the word freezer. That kind of popped a little thought in my mind. I talked with a gentleman a few days ago, and we were talking about pumpkins. Well, anyway, a lot of people, they buy seeds this year, and they may not plant them, so they put them in the freezer until the next year. Now, Johnny, I have heard people say it's fine to plant them, and I've heard some say that it's not best to plant them. But I have heard a few people say that what you can do is, ahead of time, you can pull some of those seeds out of the freezer and put them into like a paper towel, and wet the paper towel and have it inside. And just say if you have 10 seeds in it, you can wait several days to see how many of them actually germinate and sprout. And then you can go off of that as to if you feel like you had a pretty good germination of what seeds that you tested out. Is that something you would advise?
That's a great way to do it. As if you're going to save seeds, and we usually have some seed saving workshops, toward the end of the season. It's a great thing to do. If it's not a hybrid, it has to be an open pollinated seed, which is not non-hybrid seeds, because they're not going to come back true to what you're trying to grow. So you collect those seeds, and a great way to test them is to do exactly what you said. You get a paper towel, damp paper towel, and you wrap those seeds up in it. You put it inside a moisture chamber. Everybody has moisture chambers in their house.
Oh, yeah.
Ziploc bag. Works perfect. So that's
you can usually buy a pack of 50 at a time.
Yeah. So just put them in a Ziploc bag. Keep it moist for 7-10 days. Usually you'll start getting some germination. I like putting them in increments of 10 because I can do the math on that. If one germinates, it's 10%, two germinates, 20%, and so forth. If you get 50% germination, that's pretty good germination. If you get less than that, you might just need to put more seeds in the heel when you plant it, and you still, you can always weed them out or pull them out if they all germinate. So it's a great way to germ they call it germing or trying to get a germination percentage of your seeds that you kept over. But that's a great way. Freezer is a good place to keep them. Refrigerator, just a cool, dry area. In a pot. Usually you want to store them in a paper bag rather than a plastic bag because of moisture buildup.
Well, speaking of seeds, it seems like to me when we were here in the spring of last year, we was talking to Bill, and Bill was saying, Rob, if you want to get your seed, you need to get them early. He said, because when we sell out, it's not likely that we can get more in. And now, whether it's that way or not, in which COVID had a big play into that, but if you are seriously thinking about planting, go ahead and get your seed. You don't have to plant them right now, but go ahead and get them, and that way, you've got them pretty much.
Yeah.
And Michaela, with that being said, back to corn, I forget the number, but like a bushel of what I'm going to call field corn to plant, that is extremely pricey, isn't it?
Yes, so a bag of corn to plant will run you anywhere, ballpark is probably going to be $300 to $350. Wow. Depending on what kind of genetics, or maybe $250 to $350. I'll make a bigger range.
Wow.
But yeah, it's very expensive crop. Out of the field crops, so that's corn, soybeans, wheat, out of those three, corn is definitely the most expensive one to put into the ground.
Okay, now with that being said, I know that it's a lot of, what's the word, genetics or something, like, I know they have like this Roundup Ready wheat.
No, there is no Roundup Ready wheat.
Okay, well, it's Roundup Ready soybeans
and corn.
Okay,
yes, that's right.
Now, and I have heard of some of these big companies were taking action against some farmers that were saving seed from the previous year to replant the next year. Now, is that illegal if they're only planting for themselves, or if they're actually selling to someone else? And that's just a question popped in my mind.
Yeah, so I learned a little bit about that, and the reason that gets so much attention is the farmer was actually selling those seeds. So he was planting those seeds, harvesting them, and then trying to sell that technology that is patented, that you know,
Okay.
that is illegal. As far as corn goes, I guess you probably technically could plant the corn, and then you're not supposed to. I'm not really sure exactly the legality of it, but just practically, corn is a hybrid whenever you purchase it. So it has something called hybrid vigor, which means that it's going to produce better whenever you plant it. Now, if you plant it, you harvest that seed, and then you put it back out there, it's going to have a very large variation in genetics. So it's going to be different heights, it's going to come in at different times, it's going to mature at different times, and it's not going to be a good crop. So you could, but it's a bad idea. You don't need to. Yeah.
That's right. You know, why do that? Go ahead and get good quality seed, and you know what you've got from Jump Street. Well, that's really interesting. You know, when you think about everything that's kind of came and almost in a full circle, so to speak. But now, do you think it will ever be a genetically Roundup ready wheat?
I have no idea about that one. I haven't heard anything. I think a lot of people would be really happy if we did, but I really have no idea. There isn't any wheat that has any sort of a GMO herbicide resistance or anything like that. There is no wheat like that.
How do you control weed in wheat?
So there's a lot of different ways to control weeds in wheat. There's lots and lots of different herbicides that are registered. It's just that it's not genetic specific. Right. So there's also other herbicides and weed controls that you can use in conventional corn and conventional soybeans that don't have those traits. It's nice to have that, I don't want to say silver bullet because it's not always a silver bullet, but just something that you know that you can spray this and it'll take care of the majority of the weeds that you have to deal with.
Well, Johnny, I'm going to put the hot light on you. Again, for those folks that are listening that do not know the true meaning, hey Timmy, of what a weed is, would it be putting too much of a strain on your thoughts for you to explain exactly what a weed is?
What a weed is. A weed is a plant out of place.
A plant out of place.
Yeah. So an oak tree.
How much did you want to bet on that? You know, like Jeopardy.
Is that my final answer?
Well, yeah, is that your final answer and all that stuff? But a weed is a plant that's out of place.
Out of place. So it's, you know, a rose bush in the middle of a cornfield is a weed, right? So you don't want to grow them. So and a lot of weeds have been domesticated, if you will, and turned into ornamental plants even. So, you know, they see it growing, and even in crops, you know, they see a particular, I also think of millet, there's a millet that was growing and they had purple blades coming up. So they said, well, it's not going to be a great millet for field production, but it's a great ornamental. So they moved it into the ornamental arena.
Wow.
You know, started collecting the seeds and developed it that way.
Well, Johnny, what's the problem with weeds growing in the garden or maybe a crop? I mean,
well, that's a good question, Rob. It can attract diseases and insects that you don't want to get on your crops. So if you, and any kind of setting that you're trying to grow, you know, you're trying to grow tomatoes. We talked about tomatoes. You're trying to grow tomatoes. There's some insects that will get on tomatoes, whitefly, aphids. Well, those insects may get on the weeds first, and then jump on the tomato. Well, if you didn't have the weeds there, they wouldn't have gotten there to start off with, and then get on your tomatoes. So if you can keep those cleaned up, same thing with diseases, and you probably go with some broadleaf weeds in order for diseases to cross over. Not a lot of diseases are going to cross from a grass weed into a broadleaf crop like peppers, tomatoes, squash, or something like that. But you could have some strains of maybe powdery mildew or something, but usually that's going to be on a broadleaf weed, and then get onto your vegetables. So keeping it clean, nutrient uptake. They're going to compete nutrient-wise, water-wise. They're going to compete with your plants. So it's always just good to keep them.
So you got the disease factor, the water, the nutrient, and plus they are an eyesore.
exactly. And then there's aesthetics. So, just trying to keep it clean. So,
and I'll speak on a field crop aspect too. They also compete for light. So you want your crops to grow and to have plenty of light. And if you've got, let's say, a large broadleaf weed in the middle of a cornfield that's blocking the light from getting to the corn, then that can cause issues as well.
That's a wonderful point, and I know, Johnny, you have talked about, with the fescue cool season grass, that you should never cut it, very short, because the blade of the grass will kind of help shade the roots to keep moisture there, and you said that it will also help keep weeds, from growing up. And kind of explain the analogy of this. The reason they say that Dolly Parton has such small feet is because nothing grows good in the shade. But I'll move along with that. But
this is a family show. You got to keep doing that. It's a family show. So
that's right. It's a family show. That's right. We're going to keep it G-rated today. But anyway, really and truly, it's so many little things that can have a huge impact that you just are not aware of sometimes.
Yeah, you have to. And speaking of gardening, I'm going to put a plug in. We've got a program coming up at the library on Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday. We've got a program at the Person County Library about gardening and diagnostics of issues that you might have in the garden. So I always tell people, as soon as you plant your garden, you need to be out there scouting or looking for issues that might be going on, because it's easier to kill, 5 or 6 aphids than it is to kill 500 or 600 aphids. Right. So if you can catch them early, scout and for diseases and insects. So we're going to talk about gardening and also some issues that you might want to keep an eye out for as the growing season continues on in the garden. You got to be
diligent, so to speak.
Yeah, you do.
Well, when you was talking a little while ago about the seed library, at one time you all had established a seed library here in Person County through the Person County Library. Now, is that still in existence?
It is. They still have the seed library there at Person County Library. So if you want any seeds, the sort of the theory or the framework that was set up for that was people would get seeds, and not all the seeds they have are open pollinated, but any of the open pollinated seeds that you get, that you get it, you grow them, then you collect those seeds and bring them back, to the library at the end of the season. Some of the seeds, but you don't want to bring any hybrid seeds back. They need to be open pollinated, so they'll be true to type next year.
Sort of like a book from the library.
Yeah.
You take the book, you return it. Same thing with the seed. You take the seeds, you plant it, but then you kind of return, some of the seeds.
You don't all of them. I mean, you don't want to, enjoy what you grow, but bring some back to the library so they'll have that to continue on for next year.
Now, what is the advantage of a seed library, Johnny?
Well, in its original state, this particular one, trying to develop seeds and plants that do well in a particular area. So if you've got, we'll say corn, you've got a corn crop that is you plant, and you only want to collect seeds from the best looking plants. You don't want to collect your seeds from the runts of the crop. You want to collect the seeds from your best crop, from your best plants. And so you collect the seeds from your best plants, and then next year, hopefully, you'll have more percentage of those best plants. Okay. Eventually, you keep those generations going, and you develop a type, or I won't say variety, but it's a type of strain. Thank you. That's a strain.
You were paying attention.
Look in there.
A strain of corn that does better in this particular area. That you take that corn, those same seeds, and you plant it in an area 100 miles away, 50 miles away, it may not do as well. The temperatures are a little different. The soil's a little different. Things are just not quite the same. So you've developed a strain that does well in Person County, and it may not do as well in another county. So,
well, that brings up a good point. You were saying early on the program about you've got some strawberry growers in Granville County has been, picking berries a couple of weeks now. Now we may have a few growers, here in Person County that's maybe picking some already, but we heard from one grower recently, and they're starting to pick some, and then another grower, I think it's going to be a week or so before they are ready to pick. But you would think as close as Person in Granville County is located, that it would be, pretty much game on.
Total different total different soil. I'm thinking sandy. They have a sandier soil.
Right.
Yeah, they have a sandier soil down in southern Granville County. And temperature. I mean, it's a huge difference. Although, interestingly enough, and I thought this was sort of unusual, because usually I think of Person County being cooler than Granville County. I think it was Tuesday morning, and don't hold me on the dates, but the last cool night we had, we were 31 degrees in southern Granville County. My house, we were 31.8 or whatever, but 31 degrees. I was talking to some homeowners and growers in Person County, and they were 37, 38 degrees that morning.
Wow, so y'all were a little cooler that day.
They were a little cooler.
But you all right. I think normally it is in a lot of situations where it's cooler in Person than it is Granville.
Most of the time.
But now, Michaela, with your dealings and things, do you see a big difference in Person and Granville County crops?
It would be the same thing that Johnny was talking about with the soil is the biggest difference. So how people manage their nutrients based on what soil type they have is really important, because if you have a more clay soil or a smaller soil type, it holds on to that fertilizer better. So growers that I work with, for example, they're able to put nitrogen out on their wheat in one shot, and put all of their nitrogen out at one time, and it'll stay in the ground whenever, if it's on a sandy soil, the nitrogen will leach out. And so they have to put 2 different shots of that nitrogen out in order.
Applications.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's just one example, but that's really the biggest thing that will happen. And then I'll have growers that have a sandier field and a more clay field, and they would have planted the sandier field first, but the clay field that they planted later is starting to match up growth-wise. They're starting to have the same growth, and that's because it's able to grow a little bit faster because it's holding on to those nutrients and the whatever is going on in that environment.
And moisture also.
Moisture.
Sandy land, you can get into it a little bit quicker after a rain than you can the clay soils.
Yeah.
But you know what they say about red clay, don't you, Michaela?
I don't know that I do.
To say it is, and I pretty much, over the years, well, look at that. There's Roy Brooks. Hey, Roy.
Hey, Ron.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
Anyway, Johnny, and you probably experienced this, and I know a lot of our listeners have, and you probably have too, Michaela, but you're just young and hadn't thought about it. But what they say about red clay soil is, you stick to it when it's dry, it'll stick to you when it's wet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's...
You kind of take something away with you, so to speak, So, but...
That is definitely true.
But you are right, it's like the sandy soils, they dry out a little bit faster than the clay, but I guess... No matter what kind of soil you have, it's got good points and it's got bad points.
And just knowing which one you have is the key. So
I was going to say, know your playing field. It's that is the thing. Like, it's nothing like playing a game on your home court rather than going to a place that you've never been before. But a soil sample will kind of give you a lot of insight, whether it's a garden or a field crop. Although I want to stress, as we say this quite often, when you turn in your soil sample, please make sure that whatever agent that you're dealing with, that you let them know what you are wanting to plant, because it's an entirely different form whether you want to plant sweet corn versus field corn, correct?
It may be the same form, but it's a different category. Yeah.
Okay.
Different
okay.
code
Right.
when you put it in.
Well, there are two different forms. There is a general soil analysis form and then a lawn and garden form
Yes.
that will give you back, it'll give you back the same information. I mean, they do the same analysis on the soil, but it just comes back in different,
1,000 square feet versus acre.
yes, exactly.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So the different form, but you can choose sweet corn on the agricultural one as well.
Yes.
If you're doing acres of corn, you want it to come back with recommendations. How many acres,
Yes.
how much nutrient to put out per acre. If you're doing it on the home garden, you want 1,000 square foot, because usually we're not dealing with acres at the home garden. So yeah, you're right. Two different forms. So if you're a homeowner, you're growing a garden, you want that form. If you're a grower and you're growing several acres, you want the other, the larger.
Well now, Johnny, with all this being said, we talk about it every year about this time. We all kind of get spring fever. We want to go out and get to working in the soil and planting this and planting that, and you're just happy as a lark that you're out here doing something, and then you're having to go out and keep an eye on what you've planted. You're monitoring it, whether it needs water. Do I have a problem with insects? Do I have a problem with weeds? And you make it through all this, and then, boom, here's harvest time, and everything that you have planted wants to be right all about the same time. But if you kind of plan ahead, you can kind of stage plant to where you will still be busy, but you won't be, just more or less say, well, golly, I gotta hurry up and finish with these string beans because I got butter beans that needs to be harvested, and so on and so forth. And another thing, for just a small family, you don't have to plant a whole lot to get enough that you can enjoy and preserve. Would you all both agree on that?
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, you don't need a whole lot. I've got a chart that says how much you need of certain plants per four-member household. I don't have it by memory, so I don't know exactly what that is. But yeah, and then succession planting. So you plant 6 tomato plants this week, and then 2 weeks later you plant 6 more, and so you sort of get your crops, you get your harvest staggered. There's a great calendar, a planting calendar from NC State as far as vegetables go, and it tells you when you want to plant them. It also tells you how long it is from planting to harvest, so you can stagger your harvest a little bit by doing that.
Well, Johnny, if someone is listening to the program and say, I think I'm going to plant a few tomatoes, even if you live in the city, you can have a small container garden, but before you plant, wherever you go to buy your plants at, hopefully you're going to be buying from someone that has knowledge of the different plants that they are selling, and talk to them a little bit, because I always get these confused. You got your indeterminate and determinate. Is that right, Johnny?
Yes, sir.
On tomatoes.
On tomatoes. You're
And now basically one of them means that one variety that you plant, it takes a while for the tomatoes to get ripe, and you can harvest off of this one plant, for several weeks or maybe even a month. But it's one variety to where all the tomatoes on that plant gets ripe about the certain time, correct? Same time.
The determinate varieties are the ones that ripen all pretty close to the same time. So if you want to can or freeze tomatoes, the determinate varieties do well. The indeterminates just continue to grow, and as they continue to grow, the blooms continue, and they just continue to have fruit.
And that's the ideal plant for a fresh tomato sandwich.
For a tomato sandwich, this week, and then 3 weeks from now, you'll still have tomatoes coming on. Usually as the season goes on, and as other things it'll factor in, but a lot of times the bigger tomatoes will be that first crop, and then as you get further up the...
I pick at Johnny a lot because his, least favorite fruit is the tomato. And I guess his favorite fruit would be the blueberry. Now, how about you? Do you have a favorite or not so favorite vegetable? Fruit. Well, I was giving her a vegetable question.
There's not really a whole lot that I don't like. I guess maybe like radishes.
Right.
I don't even know if that's...
That's vegetable.
Yeah, that's
So
a vegetable.
Not a fruit, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and you know that a tomato is really a fruit.
I do know that. I didn't know that tomatoes
Well, look, I'll let you know that me and Johnny, we kind of, figured a way that we was going to see if you really knew that a tomato was a fruit and not a vegetable.
Oh.
You passed the test, girl. Good
Okay.
job. All right, but go ahead now.
I didn't know that tomatoes were determinate and indeterminate because soybeans are also determinate and indeterminate based on what
Well, look at
maturity
that.
you get.
We brought you on the Gardeners Corner program and you learned something.
I did.
And we learned something.
That's right.
Is that
I
the difference
didn't know
between
that.
late
That's
tomatoes and
what we
early, late beans and early beans?
No, not
That's the difference,
necessarily.
right, okay.
So with the determinate and indeterminate soybeans, it's kind of the same thing. The determinate, once they start growing reproductively, they stop growing vegetatively, and
Yeah.
the indeterminate keeps on growing. Typically, the earlier maturing soybeans, so the group 3s and 4s, have been indeterminate. Here in North Carolina, historically, we've planted groups 5s and group 6s, which tend to be determinate. But now, with all of these new genetics that are coming out, those lines are starting to blur. So people are starting to plant indeterminate soybeans and for double crop and planting, it's just starting to mix up.
I didn't know there was a determinate and indeterminate soybean.
I didn't either, so we learned something too. So it's good. We're learning things ourselves, and hopefully our listeners are.
I hope so.
Michaela, I'm going to open up this cooler door right here, and I want you to get one of those orange drinks out right there. And what I wanted to show, we're filming the program, but we'll talk a little bit about this orange cream soda. Since Dusty Clayton is the proprietor here at T.G. Brooks Company, he has a lot of different drinks and other things, sauces, that is bottled under the T.G. Brooks Supply Company label. And so you need to come out and shop, but he has a wide variety of different things. Young man, he's bringing in some new ideas, and hopefully, all of them will work out great. And he's using a lot of the old-fashioned traditions that, Bill and Roy have carried on over the years. But if you hadn't been in T.G. Brooks Supply Company, since maybe ham season, you need to come in and you'll see a lot of different things. You'll see a lot of the same things. And Michaela, it's going to kind of be hard to paint this picture, but it seems like the last time we were set up in this location, we typically set up outside, and we had planned to today, but the rain, changed our minds on that. But it seems like the last time that we were here, just to the right of where Johnny is sitting, it was the T.G. Brooks Country Hams tree. You remember that, Johnny?
I do.
And right over here to my left is where the hoop cheese was at. Yes.
But at the beginning of the show, it wasn't as much there once we got through. I don't know why.
Well, they had a big rat in it, I think. But anyway, have you ever saw the ham tree?
I have not.
Well, that's worth coming by to see. Of course, they'll have hams, in the fall on into the winter, but, people drive from near and far for the hams that they used to have here, and hopefully Dusty will be able to continue that tradition. So, as I say, the place was established in 1936, and we certainly hope it will continue for a great number of years. I'm not sure if Conrad is in the control room back at the station. Conrad, appreciate you helping us out. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be on the air right now. But we need to get a message on for Loftus and Son Land Services. If you ever in need of property being cleared, forestry mulching, they actually have a mulching head that they put on the excavator. So if you've got a pond that's growing up around the edge, they can come out with that excavator and take that mulching head and clean up around the pond to help you kind of get it back to where you can manage it. Just contact Shorty and Jason Loftus with Loftus and Son Land Services, and we'll get a message on for them, and we'll be back with more of the Gardener's Corner program.
James Shorty Loftus and Jason Loftus are the owners-operators of Loftus and Sons Land Services, LLC. You can call James Shorty Loftus at 336-592-6381 or call Jason Loftus at 919-282-4780. Whether you're in need of their services of grading, landscaping, forestry, mulching, field edging, and cleanup, driveway construction, and gravel, call Loftus and Sons Land Services, LLC. That's James Shorty Loftus at 336-592-6318 or Jason Loftus at 919-282-4780. Check out their Facebook page for before and after photos by Loftus and Sons Land Services.
April is here and spring is bursting open. T.G. Brooks Supply Company is ready and they have them in. They have tomato plants, cabbage, broccoli, collards, lettuce, and Brussels sprouts. Also herbs like basil, chives, thyme, oregano, dill, cilantro, peppermint. They have lavender. They're geared up for the planting season. April is the month to really get things going for spring and summer. Fresh garden seeds are in and ready to plant. Reseed your lawn with clean, fresh grass seed. And they have the fertilizer, lime, herbicides, and for weed control. And if you need mulch, they have mulch even in triple ground mulch. Do you need straw, pine needles? How about potting soil, planting soil, or cow manure? They have aerators for rent. No matter if you are a homeowner or if you are a commercial landscaper, T.G. Brooks Supply Company handles everybody with the same courteous service. They can arrange delivery, or you can pull in with your pickup truck or your car, your trailer. They'll load it up, get your mulch loaded up for you. The bag products like pine mulch, they will load it in your car or trailer. It's exciting to see the spring 2023 season. And April is exciting. April is the growing season. Make tracks to 411 Helena Maria Road in Timberlake. Phone them at 364-3016. Don't forget the dog food and kennels. T.G. Brooks Company has proudly served the farmer and those in construction all the way back to 1936. They welcome folks from all over Person County, Rougemont, and northern Durham, and of course southern Person County to T.G. Brooks Supply Company.
Sandling Golf Cars and Trailers is located 613 Lewis Street in Oxford. Open for business weekdays 8 to 5, Saturdays 9 till 1. Call 1-800-221-9267 or 919-693-4626. Al, Hillary, and Will, there to serve you with all of your golf car needs. They have Club Car, Easy Go, and Yamaha units. If you're wanting a gasoline or an electric golf car, they have them at Sandling Golf Cars and Trailers. Trojan batteries, parts, and repair service. Thinking about a new grill? Check out the Wilmington Grills at Sandling Golf Cars and Trailers. Speaking of trailers, they have utility, dump, enclosed, stock, and equipment trailers. That's Sandling Golf Cars and Trailers in Oxford, 919-693-4626, toll free 1-800-221-9267. Sandling Golf Cars and Trailers.
Garden's Corner program. We're here at T.G. Brooks Supply Company, and a little while ago, I asked Michaela to look in the cooler right here and pulled out a couple of the local labeled T.G. Brooks Supply, and you're trying one of the black cherry sodas on a rating. Would you?
10 out of 10.
A 10 out of 10. Well, good. And let's see, they have the ginger ale back here and
Apple ginger ale.
apple ginger ale. Wow. So you need to come on out and see them here at T.G. Brooks Company. Now look, I apologize. We didn't really have a script for today's program, but you know, a lot of times we'll come up with a script, and with me, we never mention anything that y'all tell me y'all want to talk about, so my apologies. But you all do have some information that y'all want to pass along to the listeners about some upcoming events through the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service, so y'all just take it away. Go ahead.
All right, so first I'm going to talk about something that Kim Woods, our livestock agent, has coming up. It's going to be a pasture walk, which will be a laid-back evening walking through a beautiful pasture and learning about pasture management, where she's going to talk about plant and weed identification, point-step pasture assessment, and general management guidelines. That's going to be on April 20th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. There'll be some waters and snacks there, and it's going to be at Flat River Farm at 280 Clay Long Road. If you'd like to come to something like that, give us a call at the office, or you can go and register at go.ncsu.edu/person pasture walk. Or like I said, you can just call the extension office if you're interested in it.
And what's the date on that again?
That is April 20th.
April 20th. I think that will be a Thursday.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, next Thursday.
All right.
Week from yesterday.
All right. And we'll get Kilby to make mention of some of these events on the local news report over the next week or so to help, remind people about it. You can call the local extension office here in Person County, 336-599-1195. What else have you got you want to share some information with, either Johnny or Michaela?
Yard sale. The ECA group is going to have a yard sale on Friday, April 21st and Saturday, April 22nd, which is right after the pasture walk. So you go to pasture walk on the 20th, then come on Friday to the yard sale from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Friday, and then Saturday April 22nd will be 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. So the proceeds from the event will be used by the ECA Council, County Council, to do community services, provide scholarships and donations to groups across the county. So this yard sale will be, I'm looking for location. Michaela, do you know a location on that? Is that going to be at the?
It's at the office.
Okay, it is at the office. There we go. There, 304 South Morgan Street, Roxborough.
The county extension county office building.
Yeah, county office building there, right on Morgan Street is where that's going to be. And I'm assuming it's going to be in the auditorium, maybe. Is where that's going to be held. So come on out and support the local ECA and get some treasures. I've seen some things brought in for that already. They're already collecting things for that event, and they got some nice things already.
I will speak out in turn for Kilby, but between Kilby and myself, we get that mentioned on the want ads next week too to try to get some folks there.
Yeah.
Got some more information you want to pass along?
We sure do. This is a program coming up with our FCS agent, again, Jennifer Brown. The diabetes prevention program is about to start back up. This is a program for people that have been told that you are pre or borderline diabetic. It's not for anybody that's already been diagnosed with diabetes, but come out to an information session and learn a little bit more about the program and get some information about it. There's a lot of information sessions coming up. I'm just going to tell you about the ones that are in the rest of April. So there's going to be one on April 18th at 10 a.m., April 19th at 2 p.m., and April 27th at 12 p.m. Again, those dates are April 18th at 10, April 19th at 2, and April 27th at 12. And you only need to attend one session. There's going to be more sessions in May, so if you can't make it to any of those, then there will be some other sessions. It's going to be at the Person County Office Building. That's 304 South Morgan Street. And if you're interested in this, you can register by going to go.ncsu.edu/diabetes-info, and you will be able to register for one of these information sessions. If you have any questions, you can also call the County Extension office at 336-599-1195 and get some more information about this program from Jennifer.
And also have a Preserve at Home class coming up. So food preservation at home. We talked about gardening. Jennifer and myself often kid each other. I don't try to cook anything or preserve anything, and she doesn't try to grow anything. Of course, she's got, well, goodness gracious, I'm going to blank on his name. She's going to shoot me. Her husband to grow her crops for
He
her.
grows it and she preserves
yeah,
it.
and she preserves it. So they got a good relation. George, goodness gracious, couldn't think of George's name. Yeah, George Brown, our fearless
Forestry agent.
Yeah, forestry. Well, he's not an agent. He's forestry ranger. He's our forest ranger.
Okay.
So he's probably a little bit above the agent's section, but he's a forest ranger for Person County, and so they have, George does a great job every year of raising a garden. But the preservation class is going to be held in Hillsborough. So this is a collaboration with Caswell, Orange, and Person County Extension offices. We often do that with other counties. So Jennifer's joining forces with the other extension agents. And on April 25th at 6 p.m., they're going to have a class on water bath canning. This is a method used for high acid or acidified foods. So come and learn how to transform these delicious fruits into jams or jellies for home or to gift. So there's a cost with this associated. It's $10 for this class, and it's Tuesday, April 25th. It will be held at 1020 Highway 70 West, Suite 130, Hillsborough, North Carolina. So this is the Orange County Cooperative Extension Office is where this will be held. And then on Thursday, May 25th, so just a month apart there, 2023 at 6 p.m., there will be a pressure canning hands-on session. So this method is used for low-acid foods. So you have the high-acid foods, and then you have the low-acid foods such as meat, poultry, seafood, and vegetables. This method is used for low-acid foods, and you can learn the best practices when using this method. So again, it's a $10 cost. Both of these classes, it is a $10 cost, but well worth the cost to learn how to do these safely. That's the main thing with preserving foods, is doing it safely.
Well, Johnny, I didn't realize that pressure canning and then the warm water bath canning was depending on the whatever vegetable it was you were preserving. I know just with the warm water bathing or hot water bathing, it takes longer than pressure canning, but that's really interesting. So you can pick up a lot of valuable information for only $10. 336-599-1195.
Now, let me have another event we've got coming up is the pesticide disposal day coming up April 27th. April 27th, that's a Thursday. It will be at the Hyco Warehouse there on 501.
Mr. Jack Nestor, yeah.
So we've got that coming up, and it will be from 10 till 2. 10 till 2 on Thursday, April 27th. So if you're a grower or farmer, then you've got some pesticides that you haven't used in a while and you want to get rid of them, bring them out to this event. If you're a homeowner and you have household pesticides, now it's not for paints and other things, it's just for pesticides. So this is a pesticide disposal day. You can bring them out. So, if you just got, something that you haven't used in a long time, and you've had it around for several years, and you want to just get rid of it, get it out of your shed or wherever you have it stored, bring it to that site that day, and from 10 till 2 at Hyco Warehouse.
Right
there
out here on Durham
right
Road.
across from Lowe's there.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's where it'll be.
Well, look, I just had a person send me a text, and I hadn't thought about telling this person, but they had been asking me about the Bradford tree eradication. What's the word? Bounty, yeah. But anyway, Johnny did email me some information on it. Person County is not included. No county close by us is included, but it is some counties farther away. But if you'd like to find out a little bit more about the, more or less, them trying to get rid of the Bradford pear trees, you can contact me. I'll send you the email or contact the extension office. But anyway, I've got about 6 or 7 Bradford trees that I would like to get rid of. They're beautiful trees, but just where we've got them planted at, they're very brittle, and it can cause some damage to the fence line and other things. But
yeah. So if you have any questions on that program, just as you say, give us a call. It's designed. I think you can take up to 5 proof of cutting down 5 Bradford pears, and they'll give you replacement trees for that. And that's the sort of supplies last kind of deal. So there is a website that you can call for more information.
And I appreciate you sending me that information. Well, thanks to TG Brooks Supply Company for having us out today. Thanks to Sandling Golf Cars and Trailers for their support. We also appreciate Loftus and Son Land Services. Thank you, Shorty. Thank you, Jason. And we have a lot of different sponsors that advertise with us here on the program, and it wouldn't be possible without our sponsors. And we're just really glad that Dusty picked up the tradition of being a sponsor for TG Brooks Supply Company, as TG Brooks Company did in the past. Thanks to our special guest with the S today, Miss Michaela Berryhill and Mr. Johnny Coley. Michaela is a crops agent, Johnny's a horticultural agent, and they are with the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Service here in Person and Granville counties. Both of them are wonderful, knowledgeable people, and all the agents are. If you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. We'll turn it back over to the radio station. My name is Rob Hall. On behalf of everyone here with the Gardener's Corner program, we'll just simply say thank you for tuning in.